What's up, everybody? Thralls Metal here once again. I'm Necrotic Nick.
I'm Jammin, John.
And we have yet another album review for you. So one that we definitely had on our radar for the week of the 3rd of March was the newest offering from Entheos. Time will take us all. You're absolutely right there. That's 100% fucking correct. This again comes on the 3rd of March on Metal Blade Records. This is, I believe, their Metal Blade debut, so yeah.
Yeah, good job.
Way to go. This band formed in 2015 in Santa Cruz, California. This is their 3rd full-length overall, and this is, I would say, like modern technical death metal slash kind of progressive death metal, kind of a blend.
Yep.
And this album was intended to come out a while ago, but this was sidelined by not only COVID, which sidelined literally the entire fucking world, but also due to a really, really bad accident on the part of their frontwoman, Cheney Crab. I believe she had a wreck with her scooter and had like over 100 stitches in her face, plastic surgery. Man, she fucking battled through a lot of shit. And I think it really comes out in this album. Now, this album also features Naveen Koperweis, not entirely sure how to say your last name.
I've met him, but I still don't even know. So...
But Ex-Animals as leaders, Ex-Animosity, he's been in a lot of killer bands, as well as Evan Brewer from The Faceless and a litany of other cool projects, as well as his solo stuff.
His solo stuff is something else.
Dude's a fantastic fucking bassist. He is there as their studio bassist, but I believe the bulk of this is written by Naveen and Cheney. Like, they are the duo that essentially are Entheos, and then kind of everyone else comes along as like studio musicians or session musicians to do live shows. And I've been following this band since their debut.
Yeah, me too.
Cheney made kind of some headlines essentially for auditioning for the vocal spot for Veil of Maya. And Veil of Maya fucked up and went with someone else. I haven't been a fan of Veil of Maya since the vocalist change, honestly. So Cheney pretty much said, yeah, fuck it, I want to make my own Veil of Maya and I'm going to make it better. And she did. So... yeah, Entheos has been kind of comparable to early Veil of Maya, but I feel like this album, it's still that, but it's starting to morph into something else along the way. This is a different album. Like, it's still, like, 100% their sound, very technical, very syncopated, lots of, like, brutal breakdowns, and really cool proggy flourishes, especially in the lead work and the drum work. You know, Naveen fucking crushes on this album.
Yes.
But this is intensely more personal. And it is pretty much largely in part to Cheney's vocal performance on here, which is fucking amazing.
Yeah, she covers all territories this time. We get clean vocals in this album. Her growls are monstrous. I love the goblin screams. Everything is all combined into one. Like, the cleans appear here and there, but the screams and the growls and whatever are chalked all over this record. It's a beautiful vocal performance.
She has so many, like, levels, too. Like, she has absolutely crushing deep growls. Like, right away, the opening track, Absolute Zero, opens up with just a blood-curdling roar. Like, it is deep. It is fucking gross sounding. But she has, like, almost kind of like 2 mid-level screams and then the higher screams on top of that. And she alternates between them really fucking well. And with the music being very syncopated, kind of genty in spots in terms of the rhythms, she has a lot of room to, like, you know, kind of pepper in the vocal cadences, like kind of match the whole little, like, riff, the kind of the genty palm mutes, or even kind of go, you know, kind of off that a little bit. And it's awesome. It really makes this album flow. Like, each song kind of feels like a really, well, intense story, which I imagine is probably about her accident.
Yeah, so not only vocally entertaining, but right off the bat, this band, I think, shows a lot of growth as far as songwriting prowess is concerned. The first couple songs, Absolute Zero and In Purgatory, are fiercely technical, a lot of really sweet riffing. The breakdowns in Purgatory are absolutely nasty, down-tuned polyrhythmic madness. The drum work on all of this, first of all, Naveen's a hell of a drummer anyway. His work in Animals as Leaders was obviously insane. I've seen Entheos, I think, 2-3 times.
2 or 3 times at least.
Incredible live, and for such a small kit, I mean, dude just fucking rips. But the pace that these 2 songs set, you can tell everything is noticeably darker.
Yeah. Like, I mean, it still has its like proggy flourishes, especially when you hear the lead work. Like, a lot of the lead work is generally very brief, but very like noodly. It kind of slithers through the song, and almost kind of sounds like runs you would hear in like a jazz saxophone solo.
I mean, it reminds me of Exvius a lot. It's got that liquidic flow that Exvius has, that kind of jazzy tone, but everything's really clean and fluid, just kind of buttery smooth on these leads.
I mean, there's definitely sections where he's more shreddy, like more angular, kind of just like more aggressive. Like The Sinking Sun, I think, has some more shreddy leads on it, but it also has those jazzy leads. But yeah, the whole vibe of this album, dark. There's like some foreboding atmosphere. There's a lot more like just kind of dark, sinister riffs. Like even the opening, like Meshuggah sort of bending, disgusting riffs on In Purgatory, like they just feel gross, but also still kind of flashy and technical. Like especially the breakdown at the end of that song. It has this kind of weird hitch in it. Like you can almost like not quite find the time at first. Like no, I'm trying to follow the guitar, but that hi-hat's doing something really cool.
Well, because the drums lead in on a different beat than the guitar. The guitar set the pace of the riff, but he comes in on like 3 instead of 1. So it's really weird. But I mean, you get the groove eventually.
And on their more brutal side, songs like Darkest Day and Clarity and Waves. Darkest Day is a short, nasty, like almost just kind of straightforward death metal banger. Like the riffs are just notably more aggressive. They have, of course, there are still like noodly proggy sections, but most of it is just kind of full tilt, chuggy, just kind of in your face. And Clarity and Waves kind of surprised me with a like little blackened-ish section. Like the riffs kind of go for that cold tremolo riff, and Chaney's doing these high-pitched shrill screams, and it just kind of sets a whole different atmosphere. Like it feels sinister and evil, which is not necessarily a vibe that I would associate with this band. Most of it is just percussively fucking heavy, like to the point where the guitar and the bass are also percussive instruments. Like it's just chug, 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 and well, watch this pit fucking churn.
The Interior Wilderness, that song definitely shifts the pace a little bit, because you get these first couple songs that are out of the gate, mean, aggressive, in your face, riff salad, nasty, technical, whatever. Interior Wilderness kind of slows it down a little bit. It is not only notably slower, but it gets just like mean, down-tuned, fucking nasty breakdown. Kind of reminds me of like Nightmare's down-tune.
Yeah, actually, relatively similar. I like the fact that they go with some like big single chugs, kind of drone on these big riffs, and you have Chaney doing both highs and lows on there, and they're just creepy. They're unsettling. They sound like a rant. They sound like a fucking emotional fucking just I have everything to get off my fucking chest right now, and I choose this slow droning moment to do it.
But then it goes into Oblivion, and Oblivion kind of takes a break from all of that. Opens up really clean and pretty. Like, you get clean vocals. It's probably, I think, one of the first times I've heard Chaney ever go clean.
Yeah.
And her clean vocals are beautiful. You got Evan Brewer, who's really opening up on the bass this time. His bass work is just...
Yeah.
I can't say enough good things about Evan Brewer's bass work.
Oh, those bass runs are so warm and like just buttery smooth. Totally different vibe than like the front half of this album so far. Like it's just like, all right, we're kind of calming down, but it's like a reflective sort of calm down. It's like we're not calming down overall. We're kind of looking at some dark shit now. And
it's more straightforward. This band typically is not known for straightforward songs as much as they are technical craziness. It's a mixture of pretty vocals, harsh vocals, clean vocals, screams. It's like a culmination of everything, like wrapping up the first half of the album.
And a thing I like about this kind of 3-song run in here with The Interior Wilderness, Oblivion, and I Am the Void is generally, Entheos kind of comes in very explosively, and like they're just kind of going right for it. These songs take a bit of time to build, and not only that, they are notably like slower and more about the atmosphere than they are about like the technical play. Interior Void eventually kind of gets back into like that faster groove. Like there's some really tight mellow death riffing towards the end. It's nice raucous end to it. But I Am the Void and Oblivion especially, they're more brooding. They stay slow, they stay atmospheric. I think I Am the Void features probably Chaney's best cleans. Like
Agreed.
They're a little bit higher register, they're a little bit raspy, they're very emotive, and with these kind of crawling melodic, melodies, almost kind of akin to Mastodon, it really just kind of gives us like a really good somber edge. It's very dreary, and again, more about the atmosphere, and I really dug that overall. Like, I think that is a standout track.
But then it kicks it back into high gear and stays there throughout a majority of the Sinking Sun, which I can only describe as nasty ass riff salad.
It's a tech death blitz. Like, they go all over the fucking place.
Longest song, 7 minutes and 23 seconds. It's punch after punch after punch after punch.
Sharp transitions, lots of lead work in there, lots of different riff styles. You have multiple breakdown sections, each one seemingly heavier than the next. It's definitely like the most massive song on there, and probably one of the most aggressive throughout, like regardless of the changeovers, like they're going for like the next aggressive thing. Really dug that one. The last track I thought was very interesting. It's the title track. It's another kind of like slow, moodier track. It's a little bit more atmospheric. But it's the end of the track that really caught me as it kind of like slowly spirals into madness. Like, it opens up very welcoming, very pretty. Like, acoustic melodies. Like, oh, all right, maybe we're going to get like a ballad. I think that's entirely possible now that Chaney's doing clean vocals. But as the song goes on, it's like, no, this is getting like darker, creepier.
Because you can tell the vocal content of it. This one is very reflective. I mean, how can you not be with a song title that says "Time Will Take Us All"? Which is really, really true. But towards the end, it leads more into like the madness side of that, like coming to glimpse or to terms with the fact that time will take us all, and it just gets more and more progressively just like
more distraught, like more static kind of comes in the background, and like it becomes more unhinged. Like, oh yeah, maybe I'm not processing this very well.
Right.
No, this might be a little fucked up. As for any negatives, because I got to bring up some. Transitional atmosphere in here, I think, is really cool because the flow of this album, it almost flows as like one continuous song with like interludes and breaks in between, like very brief. Like, especially at the end of Oblivion with its creepy robotic vocals, like it kind of goes on to some atmospheric sort of noise, some ambience, and Chaney has this interesting vocal filter where it just sounds like a fucking bloodthirsty robot, and it's really cool. And there's a lot of cool like transitions where it kind of just takes like a melody, like it's closing on a softer melody, and it just brings it into the next song. And I kind of like that, you know, continuous sort of like vibe on it. But there are sections where it doesn't work, mainly because you can't tell where the tracks break. And it's mostly on Darkest Day, Clarity and Waves, and The Sinking Sun. Those three songs almost kind of run as one continuous song without like a very distinct break in between.
Yeah, there really isn't. Actually, to be honest, when we were taking notes between Darkest Days and Clarity and Waves especially, we were writing, and then I looked down at my phone and went, oh, this is now Clarity and Waves. Like, there's no way to tell the difference between the two. And they're very short songs. Both these songs are 2 minutes and 20 seconds apiece.
Yeah, the only part that really sets them apart, I would say, is Clarity and Waves has that black metal section, which definitely stands out. But as far as like a track break in there, it feels like one continuous song, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. But I would say like maybe another minor complaint is I feel like all of the experimentation is kind of located in one spot of the album versus being kind of spread out a little bit. Because again, that 3-track run, The Interior Wilderness, Oblivion, and I Am the Void, those are some of the most dynamic songs on here because they really showcase some new elements to this band's sound. But it's all kind of located in one section. Now, it's probably, you know, maybe like a story sort of driven thing, like that's where they belong. But in terms of like a pacing thing, like, you know, how the album is set up in terms of how it flows, I think if some of those more dynamic sections were, you know, spread out a bit, I think that probably would have helped the listen just a little bit. Like, I like the end of this album, you know, especially The Sinking Sun, which is just fucking nasty. But the last track, you know, I feel like there could have been more to it, like versus that little, you know, weird outro. Like, it's definitely chaotic, it fits the mood and everything, but I don't know, there's something about the pacing of this album that I don't necessarily think is terrible, but I think if certain tracks were moved around, it'd probably be a little bit better.
So overall, I'm going to give this a 4. I really dug this record. I think, it shows definite maturity in songwriting for this band, where it's not all chaos all the time. There were definite hooks to latch on to. I definitely dig the extreme vocal dynamic here. There's so much into play that she doesn't normally throw out all on the table all at once. The drum work, he's one of the upper echelon drummers. Of course, Evan Brewer's bass work. I think he's one of the best bass players in the world. I like the way this record flows. I was a little off put by the tracks running into each other, but I can't say that's a terrible thing because I like other bands that do that shit. I don't have a problem so much necessarily with the mix, although I think it's still a little high end. Like, there's a lot of treble in this band. Like, it's missing some crunch, and granted, for technical death metal, you don't want crunch necessarily, but like, I just thought it had a little bit of like a high end tone to it, kind of almost like a squeal to the ears. Again, that's not a huge knock, but it's a 4 for me. I dug it. I think they're moving in a great direction, especially for what everybody's been through. Like, this is a fuck of a record. I think they did a great job.
I'm going to give it 3.5. This is an awesome album. And honestly, I think probably their most memorable one so far. I like their first two. I do think they were kind of sticking to like a very centralized sound. This one opens it up more and opens it up in a lot of different ways. I think musically, this might be their tightest album. And vocally, it's their best album, hands down.
Yes.
Cheney put on a hell of a performance here. I was not expecting all the different vocal dynamics in here. Like, she really explores her range in both harsh vocals and clean vocals, which the clean vocals really worked here.
Yeah, really quite pretty.
And I like that they weren't used like all over the place. Like, they were kind of minimal in certain sections, kind of trying it out, seeing what would actually work with it, and I would say they were very successful. Every musician involved in this band is awesome. Naveen is a beast of a fucking drummer. I have yet to hear anything that he's on that wasn't amazing or just, technically proficient as hell. Like, the dude's a fucking monster. Evan Brewer is great. I think he's a little subdued on this one. Like, I've heard him do more on other Entheos albums, but when he comes in, like, those buttery fucking smooth bass lines come in, I was like, oh no, that's 100% Evan, and that's almost sexual. I mean, not quite, but I was at half mast. I really like the guitar work too. I think Naveen killed it there. The really cool jazzy leads on here. Like, there's some really cool runs on there that almost, again, it kind of sounds like a saxophone. Like, I really dig that. This is a really solid album. There's just some minor issues I have with it, but I mean, overall, I would say this is closer to the 4-star spectrum than it is the 3-star spectrum. If you are a fan of this band, you will definitely like this. I think this is a huge growth for the band, and if you're a big fan of like Velamaya or The Faceless or Black Dahlia Murder too, to a degree, stuff like that. Like, if you just like heavy technical music with a fuck ton of groove, by the way, then definitely check this out. This is awesome, and I think it's possibly their best album yet.
Agreed.
So, if you enjoyed this review, give it a thumbs up, and if you're new to the channel, subscribe, because we do stuff like this all the time. We are also on Patreon. If you'd like to help us out there, there's a link down below at thrallsmetal.com. We are going to load up on stuff eventually. We're just, figuring out what we need to do. I know I said this a lot, but we're going to really focus on it like after the Death Fest, because Denver Death Fest
has taken a lot of time and resource, and that's not a bad thing. I'm honored to be able to do this. This has been such an incredible experience, but it is also extremely time consuming. That being said, we will upgrade our merchandise and a whole bunch of other things, so to speak, pretty much after the Death Fest. April 20th through the 22nd in Denver, Colorado. 3 days, 28 bands, a bunch of vendors. Thank you to our sponsors. Thank you to Swinging News Productions. Thank you to everybody that's been involved. Couldn't be more excited, but that's where our hang-up is as far as our merch and other things. So once that comes to a close, we will definitely hook you guys up with some really sweet shit.
And of course, thank you all so much for liking, subscribing, following, all that jazz. Again, it's amazing doing this. There's been a lot of killer music that has come out so far this year. Like, honestly, dude, like, year-end lists are already starting to form in my head. I'm like, fuck,
yeah,
dude,
me too.
This soon?
Me too. We got, Enslaved yesterday, which was a banger. It's going to be... 2023 is another great year for music. The last couple of years, everything post-pandemic has just been fucking insane.
So lock people up in their fucking houses. Like, I'm just gonna write, and I'm feeling all sorts of shit right now. None of it good.
None of it good, but all of it good.
Yeah, this is gonna turn into something cool. Anyway, thank you all once again, and we will catch you later.